I used to think schools were boring, safe places where the worst thing that could happen was failing a test. I was so wrong. It started last year, when I stayed late after class to finish a project. The hallways were dead quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. I remember dragging my backpack down the empty corridor, the lights buzzing above me, and thinking, wow, this place feels totally different without people. I stopped at the vending machine to grab a Coke. That's when I noticed it. Someone was humming. It wasn't coming from the hallway behind me. It wasn't from a classroom either. It was everywhere. A soft, high-pitched hum, almost like a kid singing under their breath. I froze. I waited a full minute, holding my drink, telling myself maybe it was the janitor. But when I finally turned around, the hallway was empty. The next day, I told myself I was being dramatic. Schools are creepy when they're empty. That's normal, right? But then, during lunch, my friend Jenna leaned over and whispered, "Hey, did you hear about room 214? I shook my head. She smirked like she was about to tell me some dumb urban legend. They say a kid hung himself in there. Years ago. They never reopened it. Teachers don't talk about it." I laughed it off. But later that day, walking past the second floor, I realized something. Room 214's door was locked, chained from the outside, and covered with faded yellow caution tape. Like actual police tape. That's when I got this weird prickly feeling. Like someone was watching me from the little window in the door. But when I leaned closer, it was too dark to see inside. Okay, here's where things get messed up. I had detention. Yeah, I'm not perfect. They made me stay after school, alone in the library, while the teacher graded papers at her desk. I was sitting there, doodling in my notebook, when I heard it again. That humming. The same one from before. I glanced up at the teacher. She didn't react. I whispered, "Do you hear that?" She looked at me like I was crazy. But the sound got louder. It was coming from the hallway just outside the library door. My stomach dropped when the door handle started to rattle. The teacher finally noticed. She frowned, stood up, and opened the door. Nobody was there. I swear to you, nobody. By now, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The humming. The locked room. The rattle at the door. So I did something stupid. I decided to stay late again, just to see if it would happen. I told my mom I was working on extra credit. Truth? I wanted answers. That night, I was walking past room 214. The hallway lights were dim, half of them flickering like they hadn't been replaced in years. And then I saw it. A shadow. Not mine. Not anyone's. It was pressed against the inside of the locked classroom door. Perfectly still. Like someone standing there, watching me. My throat went dry. I whispered, "Hello." The shadow moved. It lifted a hand and slowly pressed it against the glass. I bolted. I tried to forget it. I really did. But then it followed me. During math class, I felt this chill run down my spine, like someone was standing right behind me. When I turned around, there was nothing but empty seats. Later, at home, I kept hearing the same humming. In my own house. At night. Faint, but definitely there. And when I checked my phone, I had a new video in my camera roll. A 10-second clip. Shaky. Dark. Just my bedroom door. Filmed from inside my closet. I live alone with my mom. She was at work. The final straw was the fire drill. Everyone was outside, lined up in the parking lot. The teachers were counting heads. I turned and looked up at the second floor of the school. There, in the window of room 214, was a boy. Maybe 13, 14.
What was that?
Pale face. Dark circles under his eyes. Just staring down at us. I nudged Jenna and pointed. But when she looked, he was gone. That night, I woke up at 3 a.m. The humming was inside my room. I sat up in bed, heart racing, and there, right at the foot of my bed, was that same boy. Face pale. Eyes black. He leaned forward and whispered, "You shouldn't have looked." And then he was gone. I don't go to that school anymore. My mom moved me to another district after I completely broke down. But sometimes, when I'm alone, I still hear the humming. Maybe it was a ghost. Maybe I imagined it. But how do you explain the video on my phone? Or the way I still wake up at 3 a.m., feeling like someone is standing at the foot of my bed? Maybe he followed me home. And if you hear humming tonight, maybe he followed you too. I swear on everything, I was never the same after what happened at my high school. It started out so normal. I was a senior, and like everyone else, I was just counting down the days to graduation. Same classrooms, same teachers, same group of friends I'd sit with during lunch. The school itself was old, like, really old. You know the type: squeaky floors, windows that barely opened, long hallways that smelled like bleach and dust. People used to joke it was haunted, but we all laughed it off. I was used to staying late sometimes, basketball practice, group projects, even detention once or twice. The janitors would still be cleaning, lights flickering in half the hallways, but I never really thought much about it. Until, that night. I had to stay after school for a group project. Everyone bailed except me, so I was stuck finishing in the library. When I finally packed up, it was close to 7 p.m. The halls were dead quiet. Every door was locked, and the only sound was my footsteps echoing way too loud. As I passed by one of the old classrooms on the third floor, I noticed something weird. The lights inside were on, but the room was empty. And on the chalkboard, written in huge, messy letters was, "Don't stay after dark." At first, I thought it was just some prank. Maybe a janitor with a sense of humor. But here's the thing, when I blinked, the writing was gone. Just a clean, blank chalkboard. I told myself I was tired, grabbed my backpack, and rushed out. The next day, I tried not to think about it. But in the middle of math class, I kept catching something out of the corner of my eye. Like someone was standing in the hallway, just barely visible through the door window. But every time I looked, no one was there. Later that week, I stayed late again, this time for basketball practice. When it ended, I went to the locker room to grab my stuff. I swear to God, as I was tying my shoes, I heard someone whisper my name. Clear as day. "Hey." I froze. I was alone. When I looked up, I saw movement in the reflection of the trophy case across the room. A dark shape, standing by the lockers. But when I turned around, nothing. By now, I was seriously freaked out. I even told my friend Jake, but of course, he just laughed. "Dude, you're just tired. Our school isn't haunted, it's just falling apart." But then came the night that still makes my skin crawl. I had detention. Yeah, not my proudest moment. When I was finally allowed to leave, it was pitch black outside. Most of the building was locked up, and I had to cut through the long east hallway to get out. That hallway is creepy even during the day. It's lined with lockers on both sides, but half the overhead lights don't work. That night, only every third bulb was on, so it looked like something out of a horror movie. Halfway down the hall, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. Empty. So I kept walking. But the footsteps got louder. Closer. Then, slam. A locker door burst open by itself, right next to me. I dropped my books and ran. The final straw happened about a week later. I was heading out after a late study session. Something made me stop at the third-floor classroom, the same one where I'd seen that writing on the board. The door was slightly open. And I could hear, crying. Not like a student. More like a grown man, broken, sobbing. Against every instinct, I pushed the door open. The lights were flickering, and the whole room smelled like mildew. But what I saw, I can't get it out of my head. A man was standing in the corner. Not a teacher, not anyone I recognized. He was tall, his face blurred, like my eyes couldn't focus on it. And on the chalkboard, the words were back. You shouldn't be here. Then, he turned. And it felt like the entire room dropped 10 degrees. He didn't move toward me, he just tilted his head, like he was studying me. And then, in the blink of an eye, the lights went out. I don't even remember running. All I know is I ended up outside, gasping for air, my hands shaking so bad I could barely dial my phone. I never told my teachers. I barely even told my friends, because I knew they wouldn't believe me. But here's the thing. That classroom? It's still there. Still locked most of the time. And sometimes, when I walk past it, I swear I can hear that faint sound of crying inside. Maybe it was just in my head. Maybe I imagined it. Or maybe, our school wasn't as empty as we thought after dark. All I know is, I'll never stay late again. And if you ever do, whatever you do, don't look into the third-floor classroom. I swear to you, what I'm about to tell you happened at my school, and to this day, I can't step inside a classroom without looking over my shoulder. It started like any other boring school week. You know the routine, dragging myself out of bed, eating stale cereal, scrolling through my phone half asleep, then sprinting so I wouldn't miss the bus. Nothing weird. Nothing special. Just school. But my school had this one thing everyone hated, the basement classrooms. They were old, damp, smelled like rust and dust, and the lights flickered non-stop. Most teachers avoided them, but sometimes if all the other rooms were full, we got sent down there. And that week, my history class was moved to the basement. The first time I walked into that classroom, I noticed something strange. There were 20 desks, but only 19 chairs. One desk sat in the corner, completely empty. No chair. No student. No one ever sat there. I thought nothing of it at first, just school being cheap, right? But halfway through class, I swear I heard the sound of a chair dragging across the floor. That screeching metal on tile sound. Except, nobody moved. Everyone else was writing. The teacher was talking. And when I glanced at that empty desk in the corner, I could have sworn it wasn't empty anymore. Like, just for a split second, I thought I saw a shadow there. The next day, it got worse. We had a test, and the room was silent. All I could hear was pencils scratching. Then suddenly, tap. 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 Like someone tapping their nails on a desk. I looked around, but everyone was focused. Nobody was doing it. Then I realized, it was coming from the empty desk. I stared at it so long that my teacher noticed and asked if I was okay. I just lied and said I needed water. But when I came back, there was a piece of paper on my desk. I hadn't put it there. It just said, in messy handwriting, "Sit with me." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that dragging chair sound in my head. The next morning, I almost skipped school. But my mom forced me to go. So I went. And of course, history class, basement. When I walked in, I froze. Because now, the empty desk had a chair. I asked my friend if he saw the school finally put one there. He looked at me like I was crazy. What chair? That desk's always been empty. I didn't say anything. But I swear to you, there was a chair now. And this time, it was facing my direction. That day was the breaking point. Halfway through class, the lights flickered, then completely went out. The room went pitch black. Everyone groaned, some people laughed nervously, but I froze. Because I felt breathing. Right on the back of my neck. Slow. Heavy. Not anyone from class, it was too close. I whipped around, but of course, nothing was there. The lights flickered back on, and everyone went back to normal like nothing happened. But when I turned my head toward that corner desk, the chair wasn't empty anymore. There was a girl sitting there. Long black hair covering her face, head tilted, like she'd been waiting for me the whole time. And then, she smiled. The next second, the bell rang, and when I blinked, the desk was empty again. Nobody believed me when I told them. Some people even laughed, said I must have fallen asleep. But here's the thing. That night, when I opened my backpack to study, I found that same piece of paper again. This time, it didn't say, "Sit with me." It said, "You already did." And ever since then, every time I walk into a classroom, there's always an extra chair waiting.